The last movie I saw before the COVID lockdowns was The Gentleman, and I loved it. I thought it was Guy Ritchie going back to what he does best, but exploring a more classy and gentlemanly side of British crime. When I heard there was a TV series that was coming out and that Guy Ritchie would actually be decently involved, I was excited to see it, but also wondering, what story was there left to tell? And with it being streamed on Netflix, I also didn't want to get my hopes up, and so I kind of went into this blind with expectations of it being just okay. So, to start this review, right off the bat, let's just rip the band aid off with a minor spoiler. None of the characters from the movie are in this show, or even mentioned in any sort of way with a throwaway line or anything like that. It is modern day Britain in 2024, so it isn't really a prequel, and it isn't really a sequel either. The only common part with the movie really is that there is a weed empire that hides their farms under British lord estates, and they like pay off the lords, so they go along with it. The main premise of the show that is set up in the first couple episodes is that one of the 12 lords that have, the weed farm on their property dies. His youngest son Eddie comes back to England from his duties as a soldier to go to the funeral. Turns out that the dead lord left his entire estate and title of duke to him, which the eldest son Freddie is not very happy about. Turns out Freddie's in debt to essentially a British version of the Seed family from Far Cry 5. The estate does not have enough liquid cash to pay off these debts, so Freddie looks at selling the place to a conveniently well-timed interested buyer. This alerts the Glass family, who are the ones that now own the Weed Empire, not Michael Pearson from the movie, and they approach him saying that selling the estate would be bad for business, and they clue him into the weed game and what his late father was actually doing and how he made his money. And he then convinces them to help him get the funds he needs to save Freddy and promises that he won't sell. A new deal with the religious drug dealing family is made to pay only half the money that Freddy owes, but Freddy also has to humiliate himself on camera. But Freddy gets pushed a little too far while doing the humiliation, and he kills one of the leaders of the family, who's the one that he actually is in debt to and apologizing to. This snowballs into a web of killing and lies in order to convince the main Jesus loving murderer named Gospel John that his brother Tommy was killed by their lackey Jethro, who ran off with the money. All the while, Eddie is just trying to save Jethro because he thinks of him as like just a kid that got mixed up with this because he had no other choice and wants him to live and be free from this kind of life. And in the end, they get away with it, and the Glass family is impressed with Eddie and want him to get more involved. But Eddie wants them out of his land and his family's lives within the year if he can promise them that he has a way to make them more money. This series of events from the first two episodes, sets up the rest of the season where it becomes more like a procedural like show with the overall story of a common enemy starting to emerge while Eddie tries to grow the Glass family's weed empire enough to let him out of the game and be left alone. The entire show has everything you come to expect from classic Guy Ritchie movies like Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and of course, the original Gentleman movie. It has posh Brits, gangsters with classic gangster names, drugs, old time shotguns, fun ways of explaining things, over the top moments, smart double crosses, some convenient moments, and of course, Vinnie Jones. I will say it's not his best in terms of wit and wacky characters, and the humorous moments didn't hit as well as a lot of his classics. But still, it's a fun show and keeps you intrigued enough to want to know what happens next. You want to see Eddie be clever and how he will get out of the snowballing problem of the week. And then while he's handling all the problems, will he end up liking it? Will he be falling deeper into the weed game? Or will he actually find his way out and be rid of the Glass family? You also have Freddy, who's a drug addicted, selfish older brother who is always jealous of Eddie and ends up screwing things up for his own interest and selfishness. And I have to say, the actor who played Freddy absolutely nailed the part. I have a feeling that the audience was not at all supposed to like him as a character, and you really don't. Every time he opens his mouth or makes things worse, you just want Eddie to put a bullet in his head. So many problems would have never happened or have been easier if Freddy wasn't in the picture. But he's family, so Eddie keeps him around. Then you have Susie Glass, the daughter of Bobby Glass, the man who owns the Weed Empire. But he's in like a cushy British jail, and Susie runs the day to day. She's a confident girl who doesn't mind making the tough decisions, although she does tend to get in over her head from time to time. She is well respected in the criminal world, and for the most part, knows how to play the game well without having to be the muscle herself. She is sometimes in conflict with her dad about how the business should be ran and expand, but she loves her family and will do anything for them. And of course, there's quite a few other side characters and drug trade members and leaders. One of the most notable of which is Giancarlo Esposito. Gus. It's Gus from Breaking Bad. I mean that not only as I cannot pronounce his name, but he also plays essentially a sophisticated, gentlemanly version of Gus from Breaking Bad. He's even the king of a crystal meth kingdom. The other most notable character is Jeff, played by Vinnie Jones. He's the resident landscaper, farmer, and animal lover of the Horniman estate. There's more than meets the eye about Jeff, who knew about the weed business when Eddie's father was alive, and has a pretty good intellect and understanding about how the criminal world works too. He has clearly seen some shit and done some shit, and he is definitely one of my favorite characters in the show, and I wish they had done more with him. Wishing they had done more is pretty much my main complaint of the entire series, actually. It's similar to my complaint about Dune 2. 8 episodes wasn't really enough to do the character work justice. Not that there was that in-depth of characters to begin with, but what was there was good, and I was interested in exploring them more and seeing how they would be developed and how the relationships would change. Overall, the relationships and the Eddie falling deeper in the weed game thing all felt a little rushed. At one point, Jeff told Eddie that he needed to learn patience. Any other procedural-like show would have him learn that lesson at the end of the episode. But this story needed to move along with more bombshells and stuff because there weren't many episodes left in the season. They were quick to tie up loose ends, but also leave other threads there in case they got another season. So even though it felt a bit rushed, the story could end with this season and be just fine. Along with the pacing and episode count, some other nitpicks I have about the show are stuff like Jimmy being a one-note character and that he got kind of annoying. They make real dumb decisions sometimes, like not questioning the fact that Jimmy met a girl that he became obsessed with conveniently at the same time a weed truck is stolen. They sometimes make rash decisions based on their enemies telling them something without checking it at all. They all seem to believe that they're getting told the truth after repeatedly being lied to. And like a lot of shows, a good amount of the problems wouldn't have happened if they had just talked. There was a potentially cool fight at the end of the show that we didn't really get because it became a, look, I'm so badass, I have the power to just call them off kind of moment. And this actually reminds me of an issue I did have with Vinnie Jones's character. It was pretty heavily implied that he was a very capable fighter and secret badass. And as soon as it seemed like we were going to get a full Vinnie Jones go kill them moment, we got blue-balled. I mean, come on, it's Vinnie Jones and Guy Richie. I wanted to see him shoot some people. Also, he was conveniently in the right place at the right time a lot for like a 15,000 acre estate or whatever it was. That's a lot of property for one guy to manage, and always seemed to be where he needs to be at exact time he needs to be there. Which kind of ties into another small complaint of scope. They mention all the other farms that they have, and this entire thing is focused on one. Screwing up one farm interrupts the entire chain. All the money seemed to really be coming from this one farm, and they just didn't have a good grounds of scope, of size, and world, and just how big this empire was, when the Gentleman movie was more about the sell and the characters and the double cross and everything like that, and the just cheating some money out by ruining a farm. This one was very much focused on the empire pretty much is this one place. Also, this is a Netflix show, so if you ever get pulled out of the story, you'll notice there's stuff like plenty of girl bosses, Eddie's sister may or may not be a pregnant lesbian for no real explained reason, and all the characters that get killed are one particular skin color and gender. while the rest of the cast is relatively diverse for an English story. While these can be pretty annoying issues in just a show in general, the main thing that distracts you from all of this is the fact that this show is genuinely a fun Guy Ritchie-esque show. So if you like his stuff, then you'll probably like this. There's plenty that you can grab onto to make you stay and watch. Plenty of little side stories and relationships happening. You know relatively what you're gonna get with Guy Ritchie, and that's alright because he does it so well and makes it a fun experience with some clever moments. Well, that's pretty much it, I guess. If you like Guy Ritchie, then watch this. If not, you probably won't like it. If you're wanting to try some of his stuff, maybe watch the original Gentleman or one of his older classics like Snatch first. And I think that's all for that. Like and subscribe. Let me know what you think in comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.